Hello, this is Yulia Kosarenko, answering some of your burning business analysis questions. This question comes up a lot when we start talking about using Scrum or how to be a business analyst in agile environment and how to manage backlog. What I hear a lot is that while writing user stories, has its own challenges, but a lot of challenges come up when you prioritize user stories or assign value to them. And now the question of prioritization is difficult anyway, right? Because you may have stakeholders with competing needs, and perhaps the same functionality, the same requirement has different value for them. Now, when you use user story format and when you use the backlog as the main repository for capturing business requirements, there is a really useful trick for you to handle that situation where the same user story seems to have different value to different people, or there is a disagreement. So today's quick video is to share this strategy with you that I hope you will be able to use. So what is this strategy? So if you have a user story and stakeholders argue, it's a 20, it's a 40, it's a high medium, no, it's just medium, no, it's medium low, it should go into minimum viable product, no, we can wait with it until a couple of releases. The easiest way to deal with it without arguing too much, without creating negative feelings, is to split this user story. Because most likely the reason we are having a disagreement is because this user story means different things to different people or includes different components that actually may have different value, or perhaps it's composed of 2 or 3 things that don't all have to go together. In other words, it probably is too big. And that's where there is a controversy. Different people look at this user story from their own perspectives and they see different parts of it, right? So if you don't want to get into endless arguments and spend time on it, and we never have that time, split the user story. For example, you have a user story that implies sending communication to client, notification to a customer in case something happens. Perhaps there are different channels of communication. Email versus phone call versus SMS. Are all 3 of these equally valuable for you? Or is just email enough for minimum viable product? Other types of communication can wait. In that case, you may want to split your user story by communication channel. Have one story for email notifications, have another story for SMS, and that may come later, and have another story for phone calls. Perhaps that one is just reserved for escalations or for really difficult customers or for really difficult situations where we are at fault. And these 3 may involve different stakeholders, different audit tracking, different versions of communication, templates, different oversight. And because of that reason, it really should be separated, right? Another reason is the same functionality may be used by different personas. One persona is, say, an accountant that needs to look at this particular list of invoices every day for various reconciliation and validation purposes to do their daily job. Another persona may be the manager that looks at it once a month. Maybe they need a different view, or maybe they need different types of analytics applied to that. So perhaps this needs to be 2 separate user stories. One as an accountant, another as an accounting manager, and you can't combine them. There could be a user story where someone says, well, but this and this can happen, and that can happen, and what if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? Well, that tells you that actually it's not one user story. There are so many exceptions that you need to separate those exceptions into other user stories. Create one for normal path where everything succeeds. Create another one. What happens if I try to do the same thing, but important data element is missing? Or I try to do the same thing, but the amount is higher than I'm able to process. Or I try to do the same thing, but the person who is supposed to execute it is on vacation and we didn't set up a delegate. So all of those exceptions should be their own user stories. Now, even though as analysts, we are trained to think about exceptions, we are trained to think about different scenarios. But what happens sometimes when we write user stories, we kind of forget about to go that granular. We stay at that higher level, but the devil is in the details. So splitting user stories, first of all, helps you to deliver better requirements, right? Because then you're going to be more detailed on each one of them, and you're going to focus on what each scenario requires and how the different activities or different steps are needed. Second, once you split it, it's going to be so much easier for stakeholders to evaluate and prioritize it. Suddenly, the ownership of that smaller user story is much more clear. The value of it is much more clear, and how important it is also much more clear, because the story itself is more narrow and specific. Okay, so think about it every time you have a disagreement about user stories. The first question you should ask yourself is, and others, is the story too big? Do we need to split it? Will it help us if we split it, right? In 2, into 3, or even into 4. Of course, there's lots of resources online on how to split user stories. You can split it by channel of communication, by role, by flow, like happy path versus alternate path versus exceptional path. You can split it by taking out exceptional scenarios that require extra approvals, that require additional verification, that need human handling because certain business rules get executed. So think about all of these different criteria, split your user stories, and reduce your arguments, and you might even improve the velocity of your team, because each user story is clearer. Okay, is clearer, and you will test perhaps this particular functionality on a smaller user story with narrow functionality, and then the other variation of it for the next, say, communication channel perhaps could be done way later, once all of this is tested and any discussions are resolved. Maybe there's a discussion with legal or with audit department, or you need translations, or you discover something else. It gives you time to resolve it, because before you do another variation of the same scenario a little bit later. Okay, and that's the whole point of agile approach, to test and learn, to try on something small and then learn how to do it better. So splitting user stories actually helps you to stay more agile. Hopefully this helps you. Any burning business analysis questions that you have, please add them in the comments. I'm always happy to answer, or try to answer them, and I will be also doing it in my upcoming LinkedIn live sessions. If you want to learn more and talk to like-minded business analysts, join our BA Mindset Mentorship Circle, or subscribe to our video library where you can watch all of the recordings. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.